Welcome back to the podcast. My name is Jake Bowler. I'm your host of Project U. I'm an online fitness coach, aspiring pro natural bodybuilder, and someone who just wants to help as many people in the world as possible become the best versions of themselves. I sift through the bullshit that's going on online in the fitness, health, wellness space and to give you guys what truly matters. My goal with Project U is to help as many people as possible become the best versions of themselves, give you real information that can actually help you and help you to understand everything and anything from losing weight, building muscle, and finding and understanding your purpose in this world. In this episode, I want to discuss some of the super helpful and simple tools you can use right now to help you get into a calorie deficit and actually stick to the plan. The main issue most people face is not being readily equipped with the right tools to actually go into a calorie deficit and remain there for an extended period of time. I'm talking about 12 to 16 weeks, none of this, 2, 3, 6 week bullshit of cutting real aggressively. So in this episode, I'll give you some of the really useful advice and things to implement now, right this second, or today, whenever you're listening to this episode, so you can start shredding those extra pounds or kilograms wherever you are in the world of fat. Now, the first thing we need to understand is that in order to lose weight, we need to eat less than we burn. Now, I'm sure you've overheard the term, but we need to be in a caloric deficit. Think about a bucket of water under a tap with a small hole in it, just to help you visualize it. So the small hole constantly causes the bucket to lose water. This is the energy you burn throughout the entire day, whether that's working out, running, lifting weights, whatever it is, eating food even, fidgeting. Now, if you turn the tap on to a point where the same amount of water is lost and added to that bucket of water, you remain the same. The water level doesn't change. This would be your maintenance calories. Makes sense, right? Now, if we crank the tap up so that the water is still lost, but the rate at which the water is added exceeds that of which is lost, you will fill the bucket up with more water, meaning you will store that excess energy and food as fat. Yes, you're still burning energy from just living, but the rate at which you're putting food and energy into the body is exceeding that which you're burning, so you're gonna be putting on weight, putting on fat usually. Now, what if we still add some water, but at a slower rate than what is lost? The bucket will slowly begin to empty, then obviously you begin to lose weight. Pretty simple. That's the basic fundamentals of fat loss. So we need to consume less than what we actually use. How to get out of the way before we jump into all the next tips and steps. I hope that makes it really simple and clear for you to understand. Now we know all this and it sounds simple, but it's often difficult for people to actually achieve this for so many people. Now, one of those reasons is the rate at which people go into a fat loss phase. If you try to go from 3,000 calories per day, for an example, down to let's say 1,800 calories per day, your body's gonna be like, what the fuck is going on? Like, what are you doing to me right now? This is not okay. Your hunger signals will go crazy. You'll feel lethargic. You'll feel tired, moody, hungry, all that fun stuff. But what happens after a few weeks? You give up and you quit, and then you bounce back to where you were before. So the goal isn't to lose all this weight in a few weeks. It needs to be done over 12 to 16-ish weeks, often even longer. And I'll explain the 12 to 16 weeks later, but for now, that's just a good guide. Now, I know if you're listening to this, or if you are overweight, I know you're gonna be in a rush to get into shape because you look and feel like shit, right? But if you think about it, it's taken you, 2, 5, 10 years, for example, to get to this point now of being overweight and being fat, not liking the way you look, whatever it is. So what makes you think you can reverse years of these unhealthy habits and getting overweight in just a few weeks? You need to get that shit out of your mind right away because it's not gonna happen. If you want this to work and you want it to work forever, slow down and follow a plan that will get you results and not leave you feeling tired and hungry 24/7. Because that's not sustainable and no one can do that for a long period of time. Now, let's come back to why do I keep mentioning this 12 to 16 weeks of duration for cutting. Typically, this is often how long people can diet before reaching what is called diet fatigue. Basically, our bodies are like, hey mate, hold up a minute. We need more energy than this to live. You start to get shitty with people for no reason, so you become moody or hangry, as people call it. Your sleep starts to suffer as you wake up hungry, you go to bed hungry, you dream about lambs jumping over a fence, and then those lambs become lamb chops that are jumping into your mouth, and you start dreaming about food. Real fun, right? Your sex drive will take a hit, your hormones might become a little out of whack, you have no energy to work out or train anymore, and just overall it's a shit time. So after this 12 to 16 week cycle of fat loss, of dieting, you've lost all this weight and you're looking pretty fucking great, but you have this issue that pops up where you're feeling hungry and all these things are going wrong. So you take a diet break. You go back to maintenance just for a few weeks. You enjoy some more food, you reset yourself, you reset your hunger signals, all that good stuff. And don't worry, you're not gonna put all this weight back on from a couple of weeks of maintenance, because the goal is you've dropped all this weight, you're looking pretty good, you go to maintenance, so you're not gonna gain any weight or lose any more weight. You're gonna sit comfortably for a little while. 2 weeks, 3 weeks, sometimes even 4 to 6 weeks. Some people, it can take a while to reset yourself back to the way you were. You can't get caught where you do a 2-week diet break and then you start cutting again, and then immediately you're like, shit, I'm thinking about food all the time already. Sometimes you need to take a diet break for 4, 6 weeks before you can actually go, okay, I'm feeling pretty good. I think I can go hard again for another 12 to 16 weeks. There's no point in rushing it. But you do not need to lose all the weight in a single go. That's where people get wrong a lot of the time. People think I need to lose all this weight in one single diet or cut. That's where you go wrong. That's where people quit. They rebound and go back to the way they were. Especially if you're someone that's quite big, you got a lot of weight to lose. It's not sustainable and it's not realistic whatsoever. So the next one is a huge hack for craving hunger, and it's just eating a lot more whole foods. You know, lots of fruit, lots of veggies, meats, high in protein, like a high protein diet. But what does this actually do for weight loss? Well, I typically like to ask this question first, is when is the last time you saw someone who overeats or is a fat person that only eats good whole foods? Never. Because it's goddamn difficult to actually do that. If you're eating a lot of fruits and vegetables that contain more fiber, often they're lower in calories for the amount of actual volume you get to actually eat, meaning you eat a lot, but not actually a lot of calories. Good luck trying to overeat. Like imagine, you know, one bell pepper is like 90 calories. Imagine trying to eat 10 bell peppers in one sitting. You'd be sick, and you'd only be eating 10 bell peppers, 900 calories. It's nothing if you're eating 10 bell peppers. I mean, it's a lot of calories, but not for 10 bell peppers. Anyway, and also why the high protein? It's the same deal. It's satiating. So protein is a satiating food. So things like meat, you're gonna eat a certain amount of meat. You're gonna feel full, but then you're gonna feel full for a longer period of time. Meaning, you're gonna snack less. You're gonna have more energy. You're not gonna eat as much food in that single sitting. And it'll also help reduce the amount of muscle you're gonna lose because you're gonna be in a caloric deficit. Which then leads into the next hack for dieting, and that's just weight training a few times a week. You don't have to be the next Arnold Schwarzenegger training 2 times a day or 6 times a week, whatever that is. You know, just a couple times a week, because while you're now eating this higher protein diet and other whole foods, you can try to maintain or even build some muscle while you're losing fat. And why is this good? Because you can then actually look leaner at a higher percentage of body fat, because there's obviously more muscle there. And then once you have more muscle, your body will actually require more food and more energy to maintain that physique. So what does this actually mean for you? Once you decide you look fucking amazing, which honestly never happens, trust me, I know it doesn't actually ever happen. But once you go back to maintenance, your new maintenance level of eating is actually more than what it was to begin with, because you have more muscle mass there, which requires more energy to be sustained, meaning your new maintenance is actually higher than what it was before. So you can eat more food and not put on weight, which is, you know, that's freaking awesome. Because you got to this place to begin with of being overweight from eating so much food. But now if you can eat more food, but not put on weight, like you're winning in all aspects of life. Now you're probably gonna ask, like, don't fruits contain sugar? Yeah, they do contain sugar, but shut the fuck up. Like, again, when is the last time you saw someone who eats like 5 pieces of fruit and all these veggies and stuff every day and is overweight? Never. You know, there's not some guy out there that eats like 20 bananas a day and is like, God damn, I'm so fat from eating all these bananas. Like, it doesn't happen. So just shut up. Now, the next one is a hack which works almost every time for when I'm dieting down. It does kind of suck, to be completely honest, but don't pick foods that taste super amazing to eat. If you're constantly eating foods where you think, God damn, like I can't wait for lunch, man. Like I made this like super tasty pad thai. It's got all this stuff in it and it tastes super good. It's low calorie, high protein, all that stuff, heaps of veggies, but it tastes amazing. Guess what? You're gonna be freaking starving by the time it comes to eating lunch, because that's all you can think about, right? You're not eating as much food, so you're in a caloric deficit. Then you're like, oh, goddamn, I'm getting a bit hungry. Lunch is coming up in a couple of hours. And it's like, oh, all I can think about is lunch. And it's like, it gets to lunchtime, you're like, goddamn, I am starving. Now, if you change that, you know, low calorie, super tasty pad thai that you've made with some, you know, plain chicken, some rice, maybe some herbs, maybe a super light dressing and some veggies, well, you no longer look forward to it, so you don't constantly think about eating that food anymore. It sounds pretty harsh and simple because it is, but it works. So once you look good and you go back to your high maintenance calories, you can then eat those tasty meals again. So it's not like a forever thing. It's just about making smarter choices so that in the long term, you can eat those higher density foods, enjoy life a bit more, but while you're actually trying to lose this weight, which is your goal here, you got to make some sacrifices. Now, the final word of advice I have for weight loss is 0-calorie drinks and sweeteners are your best friend if you have a sweet tooth. I'm someone who has a sweet tooth, and no, they aren't bad for you if you eat them in small quantities. There's people out there that say, oh, the aspartame and the sweeteners, like low 0-calorie sugars, like the replacements, are bad for you. I'm pretty sure like a teaspoon of that stuff, like a sweetener, there's like 10 times the amount in a steak. So don't worry about people saying online, it's a lot of bullshit. Like unless you're drinking like 10 liters of Coke Zero every day, probably not great for you. But if Coke Zero, for example, is a staple, like for me, it's a staple for when I'm dieting. I have a bit of a sweet tooth, it craves my sweet tooth, and it's mostly comprised of water, and it tastes great. So, watch out for the high calorie dense liquids. Stick with the no sugar options. If you need to sweeten your food because you have that sweet tooth, just use the sugar alternatives that have no calories in it. It's not going to kill you. I hope that helped. There are honestly so many more things I could talk about in this episode, but I wanted to keep it short and sharp that way you guys can get through it, apply some of the knowledge that I've just given you, and I hope that it actually helps. But these are some of the more effective ones and the most effective ones that I've wanted to discuss in this episode. So if you want to know all the hacks or more information, just let me know. I could do another episode around more dieting hacks and information to help you get shredded and lose those extra few pounds. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate all the support and all the love. Go ahead and share the episode. If you aren't following or subscribed, click the little button at the top somewhere. It doesn't cost you anything. It takes about 2 seconds of your time, and it supports the support. Means more to me than you might think. So until next time, thank you for listening to another episode of Project You. Peace out.